Hello. So, after a long period of grieving, feeling hurt, and reflecting, I want to share some of the things that I'm changing regarding to minimalism and my values and what I want to focus on. I find that so many things have changed. Also, the things that I thought that were my priorities but turned out not to be. And there are some different ways that I want to implement minimalism. I also want to share some more personal things that I went through if you're interested in that too. So, I have always viewed minimalism as reducing distractions and mostly through stuff and living more intentional and spending more time doing the things that I like and with loved ones. But there was an area that I have completely overlooked, and it was one that had enormous effects on me. So even though I was living minimal, honestly, it were decisions that I made even before I started minimalism, and I did not overthink their long-term effects. And these last couple of years made me realize how important it is to look at the long term instead of the short term, and how careful some decisions should be made, because they can have a huge impact on the many years that follow. My biggest priority right now is going to be to pursue calmness over anything else, and I really have to take care of my nervous system. I know that many people say that without the lows there are also no highs, but I honestly strive for more calmness and less of the extreme lows and extreme highs. I appreciate a good baseline. It works the best for me. So I'm going to do everything that I can to instill as much stillness and calmness as I can for the majority of the time. That is my number one priority right now, no matter what. And I know that there are things that I cannot control, but I have seen now how I have created my own crisis after crisis for years with things that I could have controlled back in the days. For me, it was the decision of taking in all these small prey animals. It started 8 years ago, and most of them I adopted from other people who wanted to get rid of them. So they already were a bit older, with the exception of the rabbits. And it started with my ferret, and funny enough, with that decision, I did not take it lightly because I was doing well living alone. I was busy in the art studio most of the time and visiting a lot of exhibitions, and life was good. I did not felt alone or anything, but I just love animals so much and I felt tempted to take a pet. And I fell completely in love with the little creature and was devastated when he got ill and passed away. Shortly after having him, it started to show that he had serious health conditions, and I was going through the vet almost weekly. I was trying desperate to help him because he stole my heart, and I was spending a lot of time, money, but especially emotional resources, just worrying and being sad most of the time, most of my days. And then I spent less time on art and the things that I enjoyed previously. After 2 years, he got so sick that I had to put him down. After his loss, I wanted to fill that void that it has caused now. And this was more of an emotional decision at the time, and I got my rabbits and guinea pigs all at once almost. I did that mostly to distract myself. The more pets, the more fun, I thought. Not having anticipated that they would all get sick fairly quickly, just like my ferret did, and that they would die soon after each other. And even though all the other areas of my life were intentional and minimal, this decision kept me in crisis after crisis, no matter how much I changed all the other things, no matter how little stuff I had, and all that grieving after grieving with very little time to recover was emotionally exhausting. It never took long until the next pet got sick. And in the meantime, after my last video, my beloved cat, Anne, who was 20 years old, she got sick and she also passed away. It's hard to imagine a life without her, and I had to grieve this too. Anna was always happy to see me. She always showed unconditional love, even at times when the world seemed to act very cruel. And especially lately with all the other losses, I always went to her. She was always there, always loving. There was so much love and kindness in her, in that little small creature. And my weekly visits to her was the thing that I looked forward to the most. Just her sweet cuddles, her sweetness, and her just being amazing and always funny. So this loss also hit me hard, and I had to recover from this too. Not even weeks after that, I had a scary incident with Laurier, my rabbit, and he got GI stasis, which can be deadly. Luckily, he made it through. It was quite difficult for a week, and I realized how stressful it has been for me to have so many life and death situations with these pets in such a small time frame, and that I could never fully recover, yet I would already be facing another health or death crisis with another pet. And I realized how emotionally burnt out I was from all these worries and all these decisions regarding life and death, all the sadness, loss, and grief, and how much I lost myself in all the sadness that I went through, and how I want things to be different from now on. I cannot do this year in, year out. So I did not even know that it was possible for a person to feel this sad. But luckily, I'm feeling like I'm out of it for the biggest part. I'm feeling good again. I'm feeling recovered. And I'm so grateful for that. There were days that I thought I would never feel better again. And it has taken me a long time. And so that is why I'm changing my priorities, because I really have to avoid this as much as I can. In the future, I will have to be very careful about pets. I find this difficult because I love them so much. As a child, I was the I love animals girl in my classroom. And when they asked me what I wanted to be when I would grow up, I said that my dream was to just work with animals in an animal shelter and in the zoo, and to have a house full of pets. It was my biggest dream to just be around animals all the time ever since that I can remember. And it's difficult to let this idea go, but taking care of myself means that I have to be careful and mindful about pet ownership, and that I have to be minimal with that as well. And I have to work on detachment. I want to be an observant in this world again, more than that I want to be overconsumed by sadness of the pet ownership or just overconsumed by emotions. I want to be observant. I notice how much I love being autonomous and how I just love looking at the world, being and feeling free, just living, perceiving, feeling, just being present, being alive, and also letting go of other things, of all these emotions all the time. So I will have to prioritize my well-being no matter what. For the last couple of years, when there was crisis after crisis, I noticed that I could barely think of myself, because there was always an emergency and I had to take care of it. Every couple of months I was at the vet, if not even weeks, and I was stressed and worried because I was so attached to these delicate small pets. And I was so afraid to lose them. And even then I still always lost them. Nothing that I did seemed to matter. I felt hopeless. I always felt as if I did something wrong, if I always made the wrong mistake. And I felt so much guilt. So now I will have to try to focus more on other things and to change my identity from not seeing myself as pet owner primarily, but to try to shift my identity to something else, to someone who's creative, for example. And I do feel very lucky that I have another very big passion in this life, something else that gives me purpose and fulfillment. And for me, that is to be creative. So now I will pour more of my time into that again, just like I did before I started with pets. It has given me a lot of fulfillment and direction in life, so I hope that will work out. And I will also pour more time into my hobbies, things that I just enjoy doing, like spending evenings cooking healthy meals and And right now I like to repair furniture that I found at a thrift store. As a child, I always loved making jewelries for fun, for no other reason than for fun. So I'm just going to try to do more hobby things and being creative. And what I also wanted to share is that while I was feeling sad, that I discovered another layer of grief, which also felt very difficult and was just as painful as just feeling unwell in the first place. And it was how me feeling unwell was perceived by the outside world. I personally always try my best to not judge others, try to empathize, to see things from people's own view, where they're coming from, where they're standing at. And it goes natural for me. I'm sincerely curious and try to understand more than that I'm inclined to judge. And of course, I'm still human and not perfect. I make mistakes, but I try to be aware of how I treat others as much as I can. So it was very difficult for me to notice that at this moment of vulnerability that I was in, that it was not being perceived with curiosity or with much empathy at times by many people around me. So on top of already feeling sad, I felt so uncared for and misunderstood. And the combination of these things just really crushed my heart. But it is what it is, and I'm grateful that I got through it. As I said, I'm feeling better again, and I've also learned a lot from this experience. I have learned, for example, that there are two kinds of people. There are internalizers, like I am, and then there are externalizers. And I have been surrounded mostly by externalizers the last couple of years. And for me, this was difficult in times of darkness because I needed connection instead of distraction. But there was little to find of that in my surrounding. And I am very grateful for the few people who did care, who were curious, who were here. And I'm also so grateful that I received so much kind comments online. And I'm grateful for the past in my life where I did have more internalizers around me, more like-minded people, which also gives me hope for the future again. I'm also grateful for just kind strangers that you meet, kind colleagues, and just finding kindness in other places. In times of darkness and loneliness, it is very welcome. And I share this not for pity, but because I have a feeling that more of us might struggle with it. And I also see a link between how not feeling well is being treated in our society with the hyper-consumerism that we're in. And just the very individualistic Western culture, for example, where having fun, making money, and consuming are glorified, and where the darker sides of life are being pushed away, where people's worth is tied up to their achievements, and there also seems to be a strange focus on positivity that sometimes goes too far, where things always have to be going well, people always have to be productive and achieving. There is no time for rest, for recovering, for telling someone that it's alright for not feeling well. It almost feels as if it's not allowed. At least that was my experience. A lot of friction from the outside world. And sometimes it seems as if we must act as if suffering is not a part of life. I'm not that good in pretending, so for me it was very difficult, and I notice how uncomfortable it makes people when you just don't feel well for a while, especially when it's a longer while. And it's a lonely place to be in. But again, this showed me how I have to prioritize calmness more than anything, because there's not even that much place for not feeling well. It also showed me that there is always unconditional love in nature, in art, in a higher power, in hobbies, in voluntary work, in a purpose, in just resting in calmness, taking care of yourself, and so forth. There are many paths to take, and I will focus more on these paths from now on. Another thing that this experience made me realize is how I do love to think about others and how I do love to care, how much that I do want to be focused on doing good rather than on consuming material things or being caught up in unimportant things. It made me realize that I do want to help and I do want to listen and I do want to care. I do want to be present. But I will just have to redirect it in some other ways from now on. The problem for me is not caring less. The matter is redirecting it. So that's what we will do from now on. And another thing that I have learned is more than ever, I realize how important the joy of simple things is. Just the comfort of empty space when everything feels so overwhelming. The sensory comfort of lying on the floor. How calming it is for my nervous system. The comfort of a warm coffee. And I've learned how to take care of sensory issues more. And how I can calm my nervous system using minimalism and my space. How I can help my body to grieve, and our bodies naturally know how to grieve if we let them. So slowly I have trained myself to find comfort in sensory calmness as well. And I figured out that I like to be doing more fun stuff, just reading for fun, having connection, and just pursuing a lot of hobbies for no other reason than just for fun because I enjoy them. So these are my minimalism priorities that I'm changing after a very long period of feeling overwhelmed by a lot of pet loss and grieving and the new insights that it has given me. And I really want to thank you so much for your patience and for watching this video. Thank you so much. See you next time.